Supervision Commission for the Little Miami School District. Meeting is Thursday, February 17th, 6 o'clock p.m. or 6:05 p.m. Call to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Beeler?
Here.
Mrs. Councilman? Present. Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Mr. Martin is in the
On
room.
his way. Mr. Watson?
Present. Had emailed to you a copy of the agenda for this evening. I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented, please.
So moved.
Mrs. Councilman, second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Hurst. Any additions, deletions? Hearing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Beeler?
Yes.
Mrs. Councilman?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes. I'm going to move the minutes up before public comments. You have the minutes of the January 27th, 2011 meeting. Right before this, let the record show that Mr. Martin entered the meeting at 6:06. Regular meeting of January 27th, 2011. Can I have a motion for the minutes, please?
So moved.
Mr. Hurst, second.
Second.
Mr. Peter, second. Any questions, comments, additions, deletions? Hearing none, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Beeler?
Yes.
Mrs. Councilman?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Martin? Mr. Watson?
You know, I'm going to abstain simply because I was not at that meeting last time, but they looked good. Public comments, do we have any public comments?
Yes, we have one request. Ron Thornbury.
First of all, I want to thank the commission. Last time I asked about more information for the taxpayers regarding the loan limits, and have some confirmation that that is coming, and it will be in writing and in a form that the public can hopefully understand. So I just wanted to thank Mr. Harden, was at the meeting, and he told me that that was coming. So I want to thank Ohio Department and for that information. And then my next comment is on the agenda item about the report on the treasurer's report at the regular school board meeting. There was some talk about the 5-year forecast and the timeline for when we would know about another loan possibly. And I just want to know what the timeline is on when that amount would be known and that the public would get an idea of what we're talking about as we continue to borrow possibly more money to operate at the state minimums.
Okay, let me go ahead and answer that question for you. Since the 5-year forecast is done, what, May?
It's done in October and it's updated in May.
In May.
And the state.
And then
members.
before, and then it'll be approved by the Board of Education, and we will have to approve that 5-year forecast as well. We'll take a look at that, and then before another loan would be done, the auditor of state would come in and audit that year, that 5-year forecast, and they would determine.
So that would be in May?
I'm sorry.
It's
go ahead.
easier.
Yes, we plan on, Sean and I have already talked, we do plan on coming in early and finishing early by meeting either mid-May, late May, 1st of June. And I don't think you can go back to the controlling board until the next year.
Until
Right.
next fiscal year.
So, but we do plan on coming in early and we do plan on getting it done in a timely manner so that soon after the beginning of the next fiscal year, that would be audited and approved and
So-
be able to submit.
So would the public, taxpayers know the kinds of debt we may be looking at, or?
Well, what we audit is we audit the general fund, the forecast for the general fund only. And any obligations that the general fund has towards debt is included in that forecast that was used for, I guess, 2012.
And that would be
That would
sometime
be
late
included
May.
in the forecast.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Was that it? I'm gonna ask you about this afterwards. Okay, moving on to the reports, Mr. Superintendent, you have a report for us?
I just handed you a copy of what we presented to the Little Miami Local Board Tuesday night, and provided some updates of where we're at with state operating standards. Before I get into that, and I'll briefly go over those pieces and open up for question and answers session, but wanted to make sure that we were given the directives to head into state operating standards, and I want to make sure that we clearly articulate that this evening. We have been directed to look at further consolidation, and our plan does include the closing of Mainville Elementary. We were directed to reduce the graduation requirements from 24 to 20, although we haven't taken action on that yet. That is in part of this plan. We have eliminated the teaming at the junior high as recommended by the oversight. We have eliminated the trimester schedule in this plan as recommended by the oversight. And we're still working with OEE representation with transportation to refine it. They're still waiting on the final report. We can talk about some of those issues altogether. This will save us in the forecast. We're targeting $1.2 million in savings for the school district and its operational pieces. As I said, our next steps, and I'm going to get into those specifically here, is to confirm that we're on the right path with state operating standards, maybe even more than on the right path that we will be operating under that plan. We still need a lot of work with special education, and we're working with ODE Fiscal on that as well. I want to remind you that we just went through an audit, so we have some very good data to help us, but we want to understand and get approval of what it means to, I want ODE to approve so that you guys have that too, that this is what we're going to do to serve our special needs students. And of course, when that's all said and done, we'll take a really close look at how we can provide support and the services we get through the ESC as our final piece. If you look on the PowerPoint that I just handed out to you, I just reached and talked with Area 1 this afternoon, Larry Grooms. I've got an email that confirms that our establishing a regular attendance, and if I can remind you that means students, our regular attendance of students that are not identified special needs. So out of the 4,064 that we currently have enrolled, we're establishing that at 3,526. If you do the math and divide that by 25 to 1, you'll get 141 regular teachers. That means we'll need to reduce our certified staff today by 15.2 positions, which means that 16 teachers in total will be a part of a reduction in force process. I have notified those 16 teachers on the initial list. We also know that the number of educational support personnel, the ESPs, need to go to 20. We're well below that, 4.47. We're working towards that in the plan. My hope that this time we meet again, we'll have specifics of exactly who the 141 teachers are, exactly who are the ESPs, and then we'll have a plan for our special education support. I just wanted to make sure before we look at some of these pieces that, it's really important that I get from you, and I'm not in any way trying to be obstinate in any way. I really need us to confirm either through resolution or whatever, that we're going to stick with that 3,526 regular attendance number, not knowing what enrollment's going to do. When I get the okay and the go-ahead, we're going to show you a shell of a plan, and then we're going to implement it, and the real work begins once we get this. It's looking at moving staff to accommodate for licensures. We know, and we've talked to the board about this, and our board is got this in their hand. They're providing input for us that it's all going to change because there's going to be attrition, there's going to be retirements yet, and that affects us a great deal as we move forward in planning. And you know, our parents want to know. They want to know what we're going to be offering. And I think I might have said it one time Tuesday night, this plan is going to change. What we're going to introduce, what we introduced Tuesday night and what you're seeing tonight is the shell and beginnings of the work in progress, because it's going to change. And that, I just want you to understand that. We may say that we're going to be able to offer X amount of electives, but if that number up here at regular attendance changes midway through the summer, and you say, nah, we didn't mean that, we meant this, that will affect anything that we offer. Attendance, enrollment's going to affect what we offer. And there's no way of predicting it right now. We're taking a stab at it, but there's no way of predicting it. So those things are going to change right up till the start of school. And it's unfortunate, but this is what we're trying to offer. Obviously, there's plenty of challenges that come with it, and I've listed those. You know, I don't know what the budget's going to dictate to us. You know, there's a lot of identified things that you have to do within different budgets. My hope is that we can spend, you know, that it won't affect us too much. Obviously, whether we pass or fail a levy could affect the enrollment. You know, determining how we're going to deal with attrition and where they're at. And good examples, if you lose math and science teachers to other districts right now, affect us a great deal, right? I mean, those are the cores that we're trying to fill at the high school, for example. You know, trying to target 35 to 1 in those classrooms so that we can offer the maximum amount of electives. You know, knowing that you're not going to be right on 35 all the time, but you're going to have higher class sizes so we can offer more electives as we go through this difficult period. And you can see some of the others that are the challengers. Next year's calendar, we are going to the traditional semester schedule that will allow us for next year to go on to semesters, will allow us to offer the maximum amount of offerings that we can at the high school. The biggest question that I have right now after Tuesday, I've been more than several calls with parents is to sit down and say, well, I've got a very difficult decision to make. I have an 8th grader. What do you think? I said, you know, I can tell you a little bit about next year. I can tell you nothing about your sophomore year. And that's the issue that we have. Is it sustainable? What's going to happen to enrollment? What's the unknowns of the budgeting piece and all of those things? That's very difficult for me to even begin having those conversations. I think one of the big questions, you know, can we earn more than the 20 credits? Sure, if it's available. You know, we're going to offer them, but there still could be some limited placements. You know, we're not going to be able to serve 100% until, you know, you're going to have to ask me in the second week of school to see how we're doing. I mean, that's the challenge here. If you turn the page, you can see we have got tentative, we definitely have a configuration. We'll be down to 4 buildings, preschool through 2nd. We'll go to Salem, intermediate, we'll house the 3-4. We're going to go to 5-7 at the junior high, and the high school will remain at 8-12. You can see, if you drop down one, you can look at their schedules and times. Those are tentative times. We've cautioned our parents, you know, those could just vary a little bit, but we've got some planning commissions on top of that. We know there's going to be issues getting more people on this particular campus as an example. You know, so we got you know, the local police, law enforcement in here, and our transportation people, and Mr. Power, who's a crazy mind with those types of things, to get together and look at, it's going to, the flow of traffic will, again, probably have to change, but we'll get through it. We're used to that. You can see that we're going to a two-tier system in transportation for efficiency. We're currently at 3, like I already did 4, now we can do that. We're going to be transporting grades 5 through 8 and K through 4 in the second tier. And as I said earlier in the conversation, that we are waiting on ODE to come back. The big issues that we have right now are, can we get more efficient in how we transport our private schools? There was a question that came up possibly that, what do we have to do regarding transportation? And basically it's, if they're within 30 minutes, the 30-minute rule, we have to transport whatever we provide in this district. Does that make sense? I mean, since we don't provide high school transportation, we don't have to provide it over there. But since we do provide minimum K-8 transportation, if that trip from the schoolhouse door to the private school door is 30 minutes or less, we've got to transport it. If we also have another option, and the Treasurer's Department can get into this if they'd like to, but there's also, they have a right to look at in lieu of or reimbursement for transportation if we don't provide it. And we look at those very closely each year. It might in some cases be better off for us to do a reimbursement than just bus 3 or 4 kids. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so we really try to look at where we're at with those pieces of how it's going to be most efficient and least cost to the district. You can see that through this formula, state operating standards formula, and I just want to make sure that we're very clear, requires me to be, as we talked about last time, we're targeting the following: 25 to 1 K4, which is required by the state, 30 to 1 in grades 5 through 7, and 35 to 1 in grades 8 through 12. Why not just go 25 across? Well, think about it. We want to offer maximum specials, maximum electives that we can by going there. Now, what happens if we start to get classes up near 40? Well, we're going to have to take an elective away and put a core in, and that's how, you know how that goes, right? But that's where we're at. Same thing with all the way down through. So this plan, as you can see, is clearly, from what I understand, and I need your input on that, is clearly reflecting the directives for moving towards state operating standards. All buildings will have resource room and co-teaching models. This is coming from student services. All buildings will have speech services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, school psychology services. We'll talk about that more next month as we break down and work with ODE officials on special ed. We're looking at making some switches in some areas. We'll bring those to you. You can see the different student services in terms of what we're trying to do with the gifted and enrichment programming. You can take a look as you turn the page. You can see what Salem's going to try to provide in a nutshell for my intermediate, junior high and high school. And again, these are tentative right now and are subject to change based on the things that we talked about with our licensure challenges. We're working closely with you guys and the auditor. The question with regards, and Sean talked a little bit about that particular piece with the forecasting. And I just wanted to, on the back page, if you look at it, you can see what we've proposed as our next steps. Reviewing this tonight was the initial step. And then we start the real work of realigning, reassigning as we go through the process. Obviously the big challenge for me is that, we've got 16 teachers now, making us up towards 106 employees that we've lost over the last 3 years. I want to keep those 16 employees. So if there's a retirement, I want to make sure I keep one of those great people that we just let go, and then see how we can avoid having to hire any specialties. We know we're going to lose some administration through this process. We're not very competitive right now, so we're waiting to see how that pans out here in the spring. And then once we get this thing moving next week, then we'll start really sharing with our staff. And our teachers are under an enormous amount of stress right now with regards to not having enough information. How are we going to relocate? When will it happen? And we want to try to get those answers to them. So, if I don't hear from anybody, we're going to have some input from our board here in the next couple of days. I'm going to assume that we're going to move forward, and we need to move forward next week with planning. And I think it's appropriate that resolution occurs with this board saying that, yes, if you go to these numbers under that formula, that you will be operating only for the fact that I don't want the number to change. And I don't want anybody, you know what I'm saying? I hope you understand that. I know you can say, we won't, but, it would be really comforting, I know for me and representation of our board, that resolution occurs. And I would ask respectfully that happens. So that's kind of that in a nutshell. Let's talk about some things, concerns that you guys may have.
Thank you for clarifying the busing.
Yeah.
Because I was approached by several, people, and I told them I thought I was right on the answer, but I wasn't sure, so I appreciate you. Because I think it's questions that the community has when they don't understand and they find out, we're busing to this school and why are we doing that? And so to clarify that in public, I think is positive.
Well, I think that, we know I've had some issues, and people call me and say, you're going to close Mainville Elementary, but it's going to, you'll have to then bus 200 more students. And I said, yeah, that's probably, that's our maximum that we think could happen. But we're also going to have 30 or 40 students that we won't provide busing, they'll go to the intermediate school. And don't forget, this is an overall plan. We'll save $70,000 a year in shutting down the Mainville Elementary, and it'll be a part of the $1.2 million. And at the end of the day, overall, we're looking, one of the big things that we're trying to get to that we couldn't do in the past, because we had too many kids, too many sites, is provide possible transfers at these sites for these private school students that will help us become more efficient. And at the end of the day, and I know we've tried that a lot over the years, that doesn't work because there's not supervision. I remember a time when we went to Kroger and remember we all housed at Kroger. That's not good. You've got to have supervision. So, I want to make sure as the state comes back, it might look good on paper, but if we're going to have to spend more dollars for supervision somewhere, I'd rather do that and be assure safety than I would, So we're looking very closely at those pieces. But what's hard, I think, for people, as you see that when we deal with this all the time, is that, I always see my Mainville Elementary world. We're looking at a $1.2 million picture of savings, and that all comes encompassed together. So that's what we need to do. And if you have questions like that, please feel free to email me directly, or sometimes I have to send it over to Gene or Greg or Terry, just to make sure we get the right answers. So that's kind of where we're at with transportation. And I think, right now, I think we might be able to reduce some more expenditures there if we can appropriately do the transfer process with the private. We need to take a real close look.
One more question.
Yes.
How is the school board working to, I know you've done this presentation at school board meetings, and I know there's reports in the paper, the school board minutes and so forth, but is there some type of plan to better educate the community, over and beyond all of this, so that they understand, just like what we were talking about, the cost of busing, that issue? Is there some type of plan between now and Levy Day that we get this out to the public?
Yeah, I've talked with our local board. We're looking at a fact sheet, frequently asked question sheet that comes from the FAQ from the district. And as been a common practice for us, but
Something on the website, something.
absolutely. I mean, we'll utilize, like we always have, every bit of our technology. And it's just not easy out there in the 98 square miles, and there's so much opportunity for misinformation because of the debate that goes on in this community. But we'll continue our practices. I think our board's been more than gone above and beyond it, trying to keep communications with the limited resources that we have. So we'll continue that practice.
Has there been a committee established for the levy?
SM, support little Miami schools is still in existence, yes.
And they'll carry out the orders they did in the past?
We have limited funding, I mean, but we're going to do our very best. I've said that all along, so. Yes,
To ask the obvious, what you would like is a resolution from the commission that says, in essence, we're going to resolve that the working number for enrollment and attendance is going to be
that number.
3,526, and that's going to be the number that's going to be used to bring all the rest of it
To determine this plan.
the more concrete or the sooner, the firmer you can get that number, I hear you saying the more quickly and the more detailed plan you can have on the table.
Yeah, I'll caution, I'm going to finish with this, but I'll caution you, I mean, it's going to change. I mean, it could change in June, but I think once we start, what teachers need right now is an idea of the direction that we're moving to get them placed, and then we can start exploring job sharing. Are there going to be retirements? Are people going to leave the district? So, I mean, yes, I need that. And I need that firm.
And just so I understand,
I thought
that number, in addition to the staffing issue, which I understand is a significant concern, does that number also helps you bring some clarity to what the curriculum's going to look like?
It allows us to start getting the next two processes that we just talked about, yes. I'm hesitant to do it, honestly, until we get that done.
I think that we realize those numbers are going to change, and we're as flexible as, we know they're going to go up or down, and we can act accordingly as they happen. We're certainly not going to swing under the bus. But I've kind of written up a resolution we'll talk about later, but adopting this report presented to us,
See, because
and authorize you.
thanks, Mike, because my purpose is this. I mean, it's not that, live with whatever we do. My purpose is, this plan is moving towards operating standards, because operating standards is a formula, right? I mean, that's what I see. And then we're building the new plan around that operating standards. Is that correct? Is that correct?
Right, and we passed the resolution for you to operate the standards, so you're just following.
And I'm meeting the numbers of the formula.
Right.
That is a practice of state operating standards. Now, I just would make sure that, I keep talking about it's going to change. And each month I'm going to keep our board updated. We're going to work through a lot of issues, and we'll keep you updated. This is nowhere ideal for what we want to be, but, we're going to try to put our, heads together to make it work. There are going to be high class sizes. There's going to be limited offerings. We know that. The big issue that I have and concern in being in this business for 27 years is that it's easy to put it on paper and see that we got these offerings. It's another thing not to have the extra help models in place for kids. And we're going to have to try to find some creative ways to get there. Not having the support piece in place to support these programs is going to be very difficult. And I want to make sure that people understand that. I mean, the level of service that they're used to around here is not going to be as easily served. I mean, it's going to be a very, very difficult change through this process. You know, one of the beauties of what we started out in 1997 was we were on a traditional schedule, 8-period day. And I will never forget that first year as assistant principal thinking, what did I do? Because the senior year meant nothing. There was just too many, I mean, we had all these offerings, but we didn't have time for teachers to collaborate. And, you know, that's where you get the professional development piece. We felt like that was the biggest piece that we're missing out of that was there's no professional dollars to it, and any professional development dollars anywhere. And over the years, we've been able to find specific professional development and keep it sustained because we were creative with our days, creative with the offerings. And I think the last piece is, you know, when kids come to school, they need an advocate. Kids need an interest. And what we found out here was a big part of our success was having that plethora of offerings, that every kid had a reason to come to school, whether it was going back here and serving 300 kids, and that shop program is about obsolete, but there was some great stuff that was happening back there so that I kept them coming and kept them alive in the classroom. Does that make sense? And I think that's the biggest piece that we're going to miss is having those things. But, you know, we're going to try to provide our very best with these particular directives, as we always have. Any other questions?
Thanks, Dan. I know this is a lot of work, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sean?
Good evening. Just a couple of brief things. Financially, I don't have a lot of new updates, but basically just a couple of things. Last month, if you probably recall, we went over the tax budget for fiscal year 12. The tax budget hearing with the Budget Commission is actually coming up next week. It was scheduled for about 2 weeks ago, and it got canceled, rescheduled for next week. So that will take place next week. We're also monitoring obviously the state budget process as everybody else is. Governor has until mid-March to submit his budget proposal. It'll go through the House, the Senate, the full budget process, and we'll have some firm numbers by the end of June. As you probably recall, right now we're projecting a 20% cut in our state funding for next year, so we'll continue to monitor that. The in lieu of transportation amounts that Mr. Bennett was talking about, obviously, as you probably know, for districts within 30 minutes of here, we have to provide some type of transportation for those kids. We don't do that. We can't provide in lieu of transportation amount, reimbursement amount for them. The last few years, the state minimum amount have been set, I think, $172 per student. This year it actually went up. I think it's around 184 now. But those are, of course, if you only have 1 or 2 kids, it doesn't make sense to have a full bus transport 1 or 2 kids. You might do the in lieu of amount for those districts. Other schools where obviously when you get up to a certain number, it makes more sense to send a bus over there. So I don't have anything financially other than that. Is there any questions that you guys have for me?
Sir?
Okay, thanks.
Lonnie, would you please get the monitor's report?
On the monitoring report, you'll notice the receipts are down by $490,000, which is about 2%. And that's probably just anticipation of maybe a larger tax advance in January than what they got. It's not really material. The expenditures are down 8%, and that's pretty much a savings, I believe, from salaries. Nothing else has changed on that first page. That's the same amounts as we've had. On page 2, the purchase order encumbrances match. They are about the same. The salaries, you will see that overall there's a 2% savings in salaries and benefits from what they projected originally on their plan. So total of the salary and benefit savings to date's about about 260,000 savings there today. Bank balance is reconciled. On the back page, We list, the funds that have negative balances, and those balances are unencumbered cash balances, which means you take purchase orders off of there also. You take the cash balance and take any purchase orders that you have out there that you haven't paid the bills on to show what is your net, your bottom line of what's available. And you notice the first fund we have listed is the general fund with almost 226,000 in a negative balance. Cash-wise, at the end of January, they had 2.2 million, and they had 3,430,000 in purchase orders. Now, are all those purchase orders going to be spent out? No, a lot of those purchase orders are what we refer to as blanket purchase orders. You put a purchase order out for $5,000 for tires for your buses. Does it mean you'll spend it? No. But you encumber it to protect yourself to make sure there's money set aside. So in that $3 million of purchase orders that's out there, there's probably a lot that will not be used up. But it is a protection so that you've got some money set aside for those expenses. So since the end of January, they've gotten a couple tax advances in for a little over $1 million, probably about enough to wipe that off. So that will continue to be monitored as we move forward, because real estate tax settlement, they'll be getting tax advances for the next few weeks, and then you get a settlement at the end of March, the final, and then that'll be it. So we'll be monitoring that a lot more closely. The permanent improvement fund is just a little bit. It also gets tax dollars, so that should help with that. The 004 is a construction fund, and we're waiting. We have some adjustments to make there. One is a fee account, and the others are grants that they're waiting. They have filed requests for cash from the state for those. So none of those are a problem. Still running very, very tight though. Just monitoring. That's it.
Questions? Hearing none, let's move to new business. Resolution 07-11, personnel resignation, employment and status changes. Read resolution, please.
Whereas the Little Miami Local School District was declared to be in state fiscal emergency on July 13, 2010, whereas the Financial Planning and Supervision Commission for the Little Miami Local School District has been created pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 33-1605 to assure the fiscal integrity of the Little Miami Local School District, and whereas the Commission has statutory responsibility to approve the district's actions regarding fiscal management manners for the Little Miami Local Schools, and whereas the district has presented the following list of personnel status changes that were approved at the February 15, 2011 Local Board of Education meeting. Under Superintendent's Report Personnel, there were 4 leave of absences requests, there were 2 resignations, and there were 4 substitute employments for short-term and 2 long-term substitute employments. Under classified personnel, there was 1 employment as a part-time person, and there was 2 people that had changes in assignments that washed themselves out as far as the hours go. And there were 6 people put on substitute employment, and 3, 4, 5 people put on with supplemental positions. And then whereas these personnel actions are within current appropriations, and whereas these actions are pursuant to Little Miami Local School District Board resolutions dated February 15, 2011, and are not taken by the Commission pursuant to 33-1607-811, now therefore be it resolved that the Commission approves the aforementioned District Board resolution to make the above changes in contracts by following procedures to the extent possible in the negotiated agreements and Ohio Revised Code.
Having heard the resolution, do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Hurst, second.
Second.
Mrs. Castleman, any questions? Comments? Hearing none, have a roll call.
Mr. Beeler?
Yes.
Mrs. Castleman?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Wetzel?
Yes. Resolution 08-11, approve purchase orders in excess of $5,000. Would you read the resolution, please?
I will skip the same 2 3 I've already read. Whereas the district has presented the following list of purchase orders in excess of $5,000. We have 110106 to CDD Government Incorporated for computer parts stuff for $9,417.70. 1101018 to Humana for March health insurance. 1101019 for dental care for February dental insurance. 1101020 to Scientific Learning for their Fast Forward, that's a software license, and it's for the renewal of that. And whereas these purchase orders are within the current appropriations, now therefore be it resolved that the Commission approves the list of purchase orders and instructs the Ohio Department of Education's fiscal monitor to initial said purchase orders and to authorize the district's release of funds.
Okay, having heard the resolution, could I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Wheeler, second.
Second.
Is that you, Mark?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst. Any questions, comments on these? Short list. Hearing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Beeler?
Yes.
Mrs. Castleman?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes, resolution 09-11, resolution to support kindergarten waiver request. Read the resolution, please.
All right, I will skip the first three that we've already read. Whereas the Ohio Revised Code 332105 A, B, and D include in House Bill 1, there is a requirement for the district to implement all-day kindergarten. And whereas the school district does not have the fiscal resources to implement all-day kindergarten, and whereas the Little Miami Local Board of Education has approved a resolution at the regular meeting on February 15, 2011, requesting a waiver of the all-day kindergarten requirement for the school years 2011, 2012, and 2012-2013. Therefore, it be resolved that the Commission supports the Little Miami Local School District in their request for a waiver from the mandate of all-day kindergarten. I have also attached their application that they filled out for that.
Having heard the resolution, can we have a motion, please? Mr. Martin, second.
Second.
Mrs. Castleman. Resolution is pretty explicit. They, in order to not have all day every day kindergarten, they have to request a waiver to that, and we're supporting the waiver. May not have to worry about that from what I read in the paper today. I don't know. We're talking about getting rid of that requirement anyway. So. Any other questions? Hearing none, have roll call, please.
Mr. Beeler?
Yes.
Mrs. Castleman?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes. I'm gonna try to state this, and you can correct me if you feel so. Resolution 010-11. I recommend that the Commission adopt the instructional realignment and programming report prepared by the superintendent and authorize the superintendent to implement the plan as presented. Now I'll give him the report to go ahead and get started on this as many numbers they have. So, having stated that, can I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Mr. Hurst, second.
Second.
Mrs. Castleman. Any questions or comments or changes to that?
That also allows him that if attendance numbers changes, he can implement
Yeah,
accordingly. So.
Well, yeah, we'll go back and we'll approve those as they occur. So,
That's what you want?
no other questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beeler?
Yes.
Mrs. Castleman?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes. It's difficult for me to get down here 2 hours away frequently. I think we need to have a little more communication with the board and with the levy campaign possibly. I would like to ask that if Mr. Hurst and Mrs. Castleman would act as a liaison from the commission to the school district in my absence. So you two want to do that? Okay. So please make note of that in the message. They be attending the school board meetings, and you need to realize that you know, if you're answering questions, unless it's, in our documents, that you're, it's not a commission answer. So. Any other comments from the commission? Now, I'm going to do the begging now. It's a 2-hour drive home in the dark without dinner. I would like to move the meetings back and forth.
it didn't, a later meeting didn't help attendance, so.
It was a whole lot nicer for me.
Really had more attendance at home.
And Matthew, because it is a long drive home after a busy day and going through there, so. I'll take the question.
Yes, please. One of the reasons why I'm here is because this clock meeting. I have a big-time job. And I was hoping to make a comment or two if I could. But evidently, you have to contact somebody ahead of time.
There were forms at the back to fill out if you want to make a public comment.
Well, I don't know if I can make it at 4 o'clock meeting. But I'm an old homie here in Panther. I got something to say.
Does the commission have a problem? Okay,
May I
so,
address the board?
yes, ma'am.
My name is Tim Schulman. I live at 62 West Hats Lake Road, Mainville, Ohio, Hamilton Township. And what I would like to say is that I'm very grateful that our school board, who has done a wonderful job with the little bit they have to work with to educate our children. They brought a school district to a level of excellence in education. We looked long and hard for a superintendent that was willing to take on a role and he's done a fine job as well. So I'm very happy with the results of the Little Miami local school system. And here we are in crisis. And it's real simple, okay? You can't blame the voters of this community. You can't. Because for one thing, there's a difference between right and wrong. You're putting on a 13.95 mil levy that, I'll be quite frank with you, will not pass. It's just a waste of time because the people, they want their country back. You know, things are bad throughout this entire nation. People have lost their homes. There's a 1.5 million home surplus nationwide in this country. Okay? People can't even sell their homes, even if they wanted to, and get the value out of them. So we're talking about a depressed market. And you're wanting to tax a depressed market. Now, I do have an advanced education. It's only an associate's degree, but I had enough economic background to know that you do not tax a depressed market. You know, the only investment that a lot of people have is their homes. Not everybody has a 6-figure income. Matter of fact, only 6% of us, according to the federal government, do have a 6-figure income and above. Only 4% of us have a $250,000 income and above per household. Okay? Now, I'm just taking this out of, the newspapers and magazines. I'm a reader. You're asking people. Dan Ben and I had a conversation because, he's got to make sure he gets his votes together, right?
Let me butt in.
No.
We allow 2 minutes for comments.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead. Okay, I'm a respectful man.
Thank you.
I just want you to respect us. Go ahead.
Thank you for your comments.
What now?
I said,
Okay, all right, that's fine. So, you're asking us to do 3 wrongs. People, right now, I want to make myself perfectly clear. 15 years ago, the state Supreme Court said
that the way we fund public school system is kind of questionable as far as our Constitution. I don't know the exact words, don't know the exact details, but you're talking about the law. I respect the law. I'm a law-abiding citizen. So you've had 15 years to kind of look at that and say to yourself, you know, maybe there's a better way. Well, now it's all caught up with us. Okay? Now we're in crisis. And we're not the only school district in the state of Ohio that's in crisis. So that's the first thing you're asking us to do is really go against the law. All right? The second thing you're asking us to do is to tax a depressed market. Like I said, that goes against rational thinking. And now you're asking us a third thing to do is to vote on something that this community has already said 7 times no. You're making a mockery out of our democratic system of government. Now, I'm telling you, I'm just being honest about it. I don't think God likes that.
Please,
No.
Your comments, sir.
You don't even have enough jail space to lock up the crooks in this community.
That's
So
okay.
I have nothing to worry about.
Please end your comments.
Okay. So, I want you to do your job. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Are there any other comments from the commission?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I do understand their concerns, but 604 of our 614 school districts in the state have figured out a way between the district and their citizens to fund their school districts. It is possible, and this district can do it.
Okay, next meeting. I would like to have it either on March 21st or March 23rd or 4 o'clock.
The 21st is a Monday, and the 23rd is a Wednesday.
And I will fly back, especially for this.
Right,
Okay, Monday the 21st.
Monday the 21st.
Yep. 4 o'clock p.m. right here. Okay, can I have a motion for adjournment, please? Mr. Martin, second.
Second.
Mr. Beeler. Roll call, please. The time is,
7 p.m. Mr. Beeler?
Yes.
Mrs. Castleman?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
yes.